Hello, my name is Missy, and I'm an astrologer. I'm mostly self-taught. I started cracking the books at around age 10, and I'm 54 now, so that's over 40 years of study. Today, I'm going to be focusing in an area known as forensic astrology, which is looking at a crime through the eyes of astrology. I'm going to be using horary astrology. I'm going to be using some midpoint astrology, some fixed stars. Um, I do different techniques in order to kind of cross-check myself when I'm studying some kind of a case. I did solve one case about 20 years ago, um, and it turned out that I had the correct last name of the perpetrator, and I did submit that, and it did get investigated, and it was found that what I was telling law enforcement was the truth, and they used the information that I gave them to capture someone who had murdered someone. And can't go into details for obvious reasons because police departments really don't like it when the public knows that they use psychics and astrologers and the like, because a lot of the public would have a problem with their tax dollars being spent that way because of the unfair stigma that has been attached to astrology, unfortunately. There is nothing spiritual about astrology. It's not part of the spirit world. There's nothing psychic about it. It's just a cut and dry, basically, set of rules that you follow that are based on planetary alignments and fixed stars, etc. So it's basically just a bunch of book knowledge. That's all it is. And so if astrology is something that interests you, I encourage you to pursue it. You can learn astrology if you were able to memorize your multiplication tables, because all it is a bunch of memorization about associations with planets and stars and alignments and astrological houses and so on. And so today I'm going to be looking at a crime. I'm going to be using horary astrology. I'm going to be using midpoint astrology. I'm going to be using a composite chart. I'm going to be using the last seen chart, which is, part of horary astrology. And fixed stars, like I said, those are kind of the candy sprinkles of astrology, I guess you could say. And so we're going to get started now. Now, this case is about Summer Wells. She was abducted at the age of 5 in June of 2021. And her mother called 911 to report her missing at a particular time and date, and that time and date is what I used to create a horary chart. And so we're going to be kind of framing everything on that horary chart. I also have what I call a random suspect in mind that I wanted to study astrologically. It is a real person, okay? But not going to be mentioning any names or anything like that because of legal reasons. Because, astrology isn't proof of anything. And so to mention the name of someone that I think had something to do with this would be really overstepping my bounds. So I'm not going to do that. So anyway, the only thing that I will say about this person is I'm on several of the Facebook pages that are dedicated to news and tips about Summer Wells and updates. And this person's name does appear on the members list. The only thing that I will say about the person who appears on the members list of one of these groups is a lot of times perpetrators of crimes, they will try to stay close to the crime. They will join search parties and pretend to be a concerned citizen just looking for the victim, okay? Like they're trying to be an outstanding member of the community or whatever by joining the search party. They're trying to appear like they're an outstanding member of the community. And so they will also join groups like the Facebook group that I mentioned earlier. in order to observe any news, in order to keep up with police, find out what's being said, see if there are any leads, anything that might actually lead to them. And so, like I said, I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm not going to try to influence listeners. I'm just going to throw that out there that perpetrators will try to glom on to a case any way they can in order to stay informed about what's going on with the case. They want to kind of know if something might be leading in their direction, so that they can take action, maybe leave town, maybe leave the state, maybe leave the country, who knows. But that is something that has been studied and has been found to be a fact, that perpetrators will try to stay close to a case in any way that they can in order to relive it sometimes, just looking at pictures of the victim and things like that, and also to know if the police are onto them or not. And so with that said, I think it's time to get started. Oh, another thing. If you are close to the family, if you know somebody in the family, if you could ask them to get me a birth time for summer, that would help, because the birth time dictates the houses of the chart. And that is what can help actually locate a missing person. You can actually Google cases solved by forensic astrology, and you'll see stories start popping up, and they are verifiable. They are bona fide proof that forensic astrology can be used to solve crimes and find missing people, dead or alive. And so if there's anybody out there that can reach out to the family and get me a birth time, please send me an email. I'll have it in the description box below. So now let's get started. Okay, I'm going to point out a few things about charts in case you don't know, because I realize some people may be listening and they don't know anything about astrology yet. Okay, when you look at a chart, okay, this is known as a tropical chart, Western astrology, basically. The directions are just the opposite of what you would see on a standard map, like if you were looking at a map trying to go somewhere. This would be south instead of north. This is north instead of south. And directions are important. I'll get into that later. This would be east, the eastern hemisphere of the chart. Oh, I'm disappearing. And then this would be the western part of the chart. And so this is why a birth time can be helpful, because as far as locating the person that's missing, these are the houses, and where the houses fall would depend on sort of the general area or mapping of where the person can be found, if enough other things are known that are in context with the case. So that would be another great reason why I would love to have the birth time, so that I could work on her chart some more. And so now I'm going to go into a lot more detail about this case. And so I'm going to have the camera actually a lot closer to all of the points that I want to discuss and talk about with regards to this case. So the first thing that I did is I made a blank chart, okay, with something called the natural houses in place, okay? The first sign of the zodiac, everybody, most people know, is Aries. Aries is kind of the baby of the zodiac because it's the first sign. And so in a natural chart, it would start, the ascendant or rising would start at 0 degrees Aries, okay? And so I have set it up I have set up a natural chart as our basis for this study. And then I took the chart of the 911 call. I took the time and the date and the place of the 911 call. And I have placed it here at 26 degrees Scorpio. All right, so this would be the rising sign of the 911 call, okay? And then over here would be the descendant, okay, which is the opposite of the ascendant, okay? And opposite from Scorpio is Taurus. So the descendant is at 26 degrees Taurus. Okay? And so we'll be looking at it in that context. Okay, and in horary astrology, the ascendant indicates the victim or the missing person. Okay, it's going to have a sign and properties, possibly other aspects involved in that. But right now, the 911 call is all we have to go on. And so that's at 26 degrees Scorpio. And this is going to refer to, like I said, the victim or the missing person. This down here in Taurus at 26 degrees on the descendant is going to indicate the perpetrator. Characteristics of the perpetrator, it could be what the perpetrator does for a living. It could be their physical description. It could also be their astrological sign. Also, what's interesting about this is it's at 26 degrees. And in what's called theory, number theory of astrology, or degree theory, I'm sorry, the number 26 aligns with the cardinal signs. And the cardinal signs are Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. All right? And so this person is most likely a cardinal sign. I believe specifically that this person is a Libra, okay, which that would line up with that 26 degree mark. And so now I'm going to detach the phone and bring it up closer to the board so that you can see more about what I'm talking about. So one of the first things that I want to look at is the natural 8th house and how the randomly chosen suspect in green figures in to the natural 8th house. I want to see how the missing person in violet figures into the 8th house. And I also want to see the last seen chart or the 911 call, which is in red. I want to see how that figures in. Composite. I did a composite chart, which means I took the randomly chosen suspect and the missing person. I put their charts together and came up with composite positions for all of their planets. Okay, so those will be in black. The midpoints will be in pink. Those are sun, moon midpoints. Fixed stars will be in orange, and so I'm going to go through this. So we're going to start right off with the natural 8th house and what's in it. 8th house. Okay. The first thing I notice is with reference to the 911 call, which is in red. In Scorpio, we have the 12th house starting at the 5th degree of Scorpio. Now, the 12th house is not a very nice house. It is ruled by Pisces and Neptune, okay, which is water. Scorpio is also a water sign, okay. The 12th house is associated with loss, sorrows, troubles, and secrets. And we have the 12th house cusp of the 911 call showing up in the natural 8th house. We also have, in the 8th house, we have the randomly chosen suspect, okay, with a Uranus at 6 degrees and a Mars at 7 degrees. Uranus is associated with things like electricity, things like tasers. So a taser may have been used in this. And then Mars is associated with just the sex act itself, not lovemaking, but just sex, okay? The male genitals mostly. It also rules Aries, which rules things like the military and the police and so on. And so we have it showing up in the 8th house, and that 8th house is associated with death, sex, taxes, death, rebirth, birth, regeneration, joint assets, things like that. It is ruled by Pluto and Mars. It's ruled by Mars and co-ruled by Pluto, so to speak. All right. So also in the 8th house, we have the victim in violet here, and her Mars is in Scorpio. Also, the perpetrator's Mars is in Scorpio, but hers is at 16 degrees. Okay. And the composite, okay, like I said, I took the charts of the randomly chosen suspect and the victim, and I did a composite chart, and their composite Mars is at 12 degrees Scorpio in the 8th natural house. Okay. Then it's conjunct above 4 degrees to her Mars at 16 degrees. And then the sun moon midpoint, which I show in pink, the victim's sun moon midpoint, the counter midpoint or midpoint, is at 16 degrees Scorpio as well. Okay, so we have a lot going on in the 8th house of death. Also, the 8th house rules murderers, serial killers, cults, organized religion. You get the idea. Okay, and then I don't see anything else in the 8th house because here the ascendant, okay, or the first house of the 911 call starts at 26 degrees Scorpio.